Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to be making some griddle bread. And this is polar bread, or in Swedish, which is where it's a proprietary brand of bread, it's called polarbröd, I think, and it's available in Sweden and in Norway. And the original recipe was called that, by all accounts, because the bread was frozen in order for it to be transported around the country. Now, I first saw this recipe on Titley's Busy Kitchen. Titley Nihan is a lady in the UK who used to do videos, but she doesn't seem to anymore. And it looked like a very good recipe. She makes some very, very good bread. So I'll put a link for her recipe on my blog, and I'll put a link for her video below my video as well, so you can check out what she does. And it's actually not a difficult recipe, but it uses bread flour and rye flour, and you can mix the combination. The more rye flour you use, the denser the griddle bread will be. And I should say, I've also seen some recipes that don't do it on a griddle or a frying pan, but do it in the oven, and that will work just as well, although you would bake them probably for 15 or 20 minutes, I guess. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for this I have 400 grams of bread flour, which works out at 2 2/3 cups based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. And I have 50 grams, which is half a cup of rye flour. That's enough for my taste. I will still have a nice doughy bread, but with the bit of flavour from the rye flour as well. Then I have 225 millilitres, which is 1 cup minus 1 tablespoon of lukewarm water. And I've got this at about 40 degrees Celsius, which is about 110 Fahrenheit, I think. Then I have 3.5 grams of active dried yeast. That's about 1 teaspoon. I have 16 grams, 4 teaspoons of caster sugar, 9 grams, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and I have 4 grams, 1.5 teaspoons of fennel seeds. Fennel seeds are very much used in the Scandinavian countries, and they're optional in this griddle bread, but you can put them in if you want to, and if you want to, you can put other flavourings like anise or aniseed. I actually considered my personal favourite of garlic powder and onion powder, but I decided I'd stick with a more Scandinavian flavour, so I'm going to use the fennel seeds. You can leave it out completely and just have just the plain bread. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put my sugar into my water, and I'm going to stir that around, and then I'm going to put the yeast into the water as well, and I'm going to leave that for about 10 minutes until it activates and becomes quite frothy. So my yeast has been activating, but I should mention that I also have as an ingredient 50 grams, which is 3.5 tablespoons of creme fraiche. Now you could use natural yogurt or you could use sour cream. It's entirely up to you, but I'm using creme fraiche. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my dry ingredients into the bowl of my stand mixer. So that's the plain flour, the bread flour, the rye flour, the salt, and the fennel seeds. And I'm going to give those a mix around. just like that. And then I'm going to add into that my creme fraiche and my activated yeast, which you can see here is frothing up nicely. So then I'm going to just mix those around a little bit with my Danish dough whisk. That's just to start to bring those together. That's good enough like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to knead that with my stand mixer until it all comes together into quite a nice, smooth but elastic dough, so that it springs back when I form it into a ball and poke it basically. And I think that will probably take 8 to 10 minutes. So my dough has been kneading for 8 minutes, and I think that looks quite good. So I'm going to take that off the dough hook. And it's come cleanly out of the bowl. Now it's just a little bit tacky, but that's good. So I'm going to form that into a ball. Like that. And if I press it, it springs back. So that's good like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into a bowl like that, and I'm going to leave it in the bowl covered with some plastic wrap until it doubles in size, and that can take an hour to 2 hours depending on the heat in the kitchen. So once that has doubled in size, I'll come back and we'll go on to the next step. So my dough has now doubled in size, and it's feels quite firm still, as it would do because of the rye flour. So I'm going to tip it out onto my work surface, and then I'm going to knock the air out of it. Like that. And then I'm going to form it back into a ball, because I want to divide this into about 6 equally sized pieces. You could do 8 if you wanted to, slightly smaller pieces. So I have 6 pieces here, which are pretty much about the same weight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to form each of them into a ball just by pulling over on them like that. I mean, you don't have to be too precise because this is only so that we can have a round shape when we roll them out. So there I have 6 ball doughs rolled out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll them out to a thickness of about 1/4 of an inch, 5 millimeters. And it doesn't matter if they're not perfectly round, obviously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prick them all over with a fork, and then I'm going to turn it over and prick it on the other side as well. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to place it onto a lightly floured baking tray. That's just so it can rest again. And I'll do the same with the remainder. And with my 6 rolled out and pricked all over, I'm going to actually cover those with a damp towel, and I'm going to leave them to rest for an hour. And as the hour comes to an end, I will set up my electric griddle and bring that up to a medium heat. But if you were doing it in a frying pan, you simply take the frying pan out and you heat the frying pan on a medium heat as well. If you want to do them in the oven, preheat the oven to 200 Celsius, that's 400 Fahrenheit, and then you will be able to put them into the oven and bake them in the oven instead of on the griddle. So I have my griddle heated to a medium heat now, and the polar bread rounds have been resting under those towels for an hour. So I'm going to put them onto a dry griddle or a dry frying pan, and I'm going to cook them for about 3 minutes on each side. And with them cooked for 3 minutes, I'm going to turn them over and cook them for a further 3 minutes. So I've cooked them for 3 minutes on the second side, and they look like that, and I'm going to transfer them onto a towel which I'm going to cover so that they cool down and stay soft as they cool down. And I'll cook the other 2 as well. I let the polar bread cool down completely, and I've actually cut one in half and then sliced one half in half again. So this is what they look like cooked, and this is the one that I cut in half. Now you could easily just slip that and use that as a pocket, you know, to fill with some, well, for me I would fill it with egg and bacon for breakfast or something. And this is the half that's I've cut again, and you can use them for sandwiches. You can use them for anything you want, basically. So I'll have a taste of this one. It's lovely and soft. The exterior is chewy, as it would be because it's been placed against the heat, but soft on the inside. And I think I can actually taste, of course, the fennel in mine. They would adapt to any flavours you want, basically. So these are actually quite easy to make. They do take a bit of time because you have to proof them and such like. But they're also very good once you've made them, and you can freeze them. And they're perfect if you freeze them and take them out of the freezer and just thaw them in the microwave for 30 seconds or so. Perfect again. So that's going to be it for this recipe, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please give me a thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, which will take you to my blog, and I'll put a link for the recipe below as usual, and I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.